only way they were able to grow their company in Baltimore is because he had to ignore old Baltimore and focus on new Baltimore. And what he meant by old Baltimore is that there's a scene here that's sort of the old money crowd that actually ends up getting in the way. It's like they don't want to look outside of Baltimore because the world there's a lot of stuff happening in this region, but there's a whole world outside this region. Your customers are probably not all here. You need to have that global outlook. And I think one of the things that Silicon Valley does well is because most people who are in Silicon Valley are not originally from there. It's like a region of transplants and transients, and so they don't have that the born here, been there for generations kind of perspective, and so that allows them to sort of think in a more global way. And I think we're starting to actually get there. There are a number of really great companies that are built here. There's great technology here. There's no reason why this region can't be great. And not only point to Millennial Media, but you look at Kevin Plank, who's built substantial business in Under Armour here. You look at a whole bunch of other companies that have started, kind of ground their teeth here. And I think there's no reason why it can't be. We built our city here because it was the great port in the Mid-Atlantic that was closest to the Midwest, right? I think that's the reason why Baltimore grew so big. But there's lots of other reasons now. So
in the valley, in the valley, failure is revered, and around here, failure is like for you to fall on your face, and then not that, but to get yourself back up, scrape yourself off, and I got a new company now, and to get people to invest in you again, it's a difficult task. Right?
I agree.
Out there, it's like, that's like a badge of honor.
Yes.
Oh,
you haven't failed.
Oh, you lost $2 million? Good. Now this next time, maybe you learned something next time.
Now you really want to make me some money because you lost the last
Where's my checkbook? You had to learn something.
Right.
So,
Harvey, what do you got back there, Harvey?
Well, it sounds like an opportunity for a new internet company. Clearing house for buying and selling corporations.
Oh yeah, for exits.
Well, I know of a number of companies that do valuations.
Yeah.
And you would think that since they seem to be doing a booming business, there's got to be some activity in that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I get all that, and I'm saying to myself, I say to people, look, Jerry and I, it took us 15 years till we finally got a check. I mean, we were like scraping, scratching, clawing, and it took us 15 years. But now that I'm an angel investor, I don't want to wait 15 years for you. You got to figure that part out. But again, some of the founders that I'm with, they're on a different timeline than their investors. And obviously, and again, I don't want them to pull the trigger and sell themselves short. I mean, I think I've got a couple that I feel down the road that are going to turn out to be home runs for me. So, I'll take my strikeouts. I'd love to have a single, but that one that's going to be a home run, I can wait on that one, and eventually down the road, I'll get paid. It took us a lot of time to get to where we were able to get some, value for our business, and so I'm willing to wait. But after 5 years, you got to answer to me. Meaning that you got to talk to me. You got to let me know what the plan is. I got to understand where you're going with this thing.
Maybe I can answer the question in a slightly different way, because I can tell you how the two transactions happened with my two companies, how they got sold, because it's not always the way you think it happens. So Channelwave, as I mentioned, we grew ridiculously fast. We had 250 employees, and we had acquired two companies. We acquired a company in Saratoga, California, which kind of made sense. We acquired a company in Toronto, Ontario, which made absolutely no sense. But that's a whole other story. And the market that we were in kind of had evolved a lot since we entered it, because between 1994 and 2000, basically the whole internet just totally emerged. And we were in this space called customer relationship management, partner relationship management. We were doing a lot of B2B stuff. And what happened was that there was a company that was basically looking to get out of some business that they were in because things were already starting to change, and then get into a new business. And we basically just closed their largest customer. We basically took what was supposed to be the customer that they were going to use to launch this new product, we basically took it. And then they're like, well, we don't want that to happen again. We're like, well, there's only way that's not going to happen again, because we know this market better than you. We've been in this market for the last year and a half, and you just entered this market. And the answer was, you got to pick us up. And this company was Click Commerce, and they were on the West Coast. They acquired us, and they were a public company, and And of course, 12 months after they acquired us, the whole stock market exploded. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Checks cash.
Now the other, yeah. Now number two, it was cash, but there's a whole other story about when you raise that much money. It's like always so much that trickles down near the bottom of that champagne tower. That's the best way to look at it. It's like much champagne is pouring in the tower. VCs are getting it now. It's like all the way down the bottom. We got a couple drips, Second company never raised a penny. ZapThink was an analyst firm. We started from scratch, grew this company, $12 million maybe. This thing was like doing really well, cash business. Me and my partner were splitting the proceeds of this business. And we were just, not to say we're getting tired. It was like 10 years later, I'm like, I hadn't really envisioned myself in this thing. So I just had a chance encounter. One of our customers we had Fannie Mae as a customer. And he had left Fannie Mae and he worked for a government contractor, which is, I guess, how it's always done in the government. He worked for the government a couple of years, quasi-government, then you go to a contractor and sell back to that government agency you were just working for. And they were looking to hire, because they were hiring, and this was only a couple of years ago. He sold ZapThink in 2011, and it's still going on. It's hard to hire. It's hard to hire people. And they were asking us for all these skilled people. And we're like, we don't have anything, but if you by us, you have the two most knowledgeable people who know this stuff, plus the rest of our pipeline. And then it took literally 3 months from the time we had that conversation to a sale closed.
Right.
The message there is like what Jerry used to do is that when we were young in the business, Jerry made himself involved with the National Parking Association on the committees, rubbing up next to Central Parkings of the world, and they'd always say, hey, Jerry, you guys are doing $25 million a year. Come on up, let's talk. Maybe we can, work a deal. And Jerry would go up and he'd listen, and then we'd come back and take all that information and keep on growing, But always thinking about the exit, even if it's 15 years away, if it's 10 years away, you're setting yourself up to get liquefied. At the end of the day, it's about wealth creation, not your business, your whatever. It's about taking care of your family, wealth creation, and then being able to give back the way you want to. And that's what it's all about.
It's like having an end in mind. So if you can envision what the company would look like being sold, it'll help you build it.
Yeah, and being sold might mean a partial sale, and that's the beauty of what Town Park has done over the years. We've in 2006, I got my first check from Town Park. And in 2007, the private equity guys wanted some more of my stock. So, hey, Jerry, this is great. This is like the cow that keeps giving milk. Whenever you want me to bring my bucket over, I'll bring it over. It's great. But every time I bring it over, I take a little more share. Oh, great. But every time, it was more and more valuable. So there's a way to slowly unwind yourself as the company grows, so that you're able to create some wealth for your family and diversify yourself. What you got, Harp?
There are people around that will do this called reverse mergers. You know what those are?
Yeah, well, a company will just acquire another company to go public.
They take the shell of a company that shut down operations for one reason or another. And it's a cheap way of doing an IPO.
You're walking down a road where you're going to spend a lot of money, and that whole penny stock public shell road is a disaster. It's a disaster. You might as well get your checkbook out right then, Harvey, and write the check on how much you're going to lose, because that whole thing is a bunch of, that's just, I don't know. I'm, as you can tell, very against that, because there's just too much opportunity for shady stuff. Too many lawyers in your pocket, and it's a penny stock company that isn't worth a penny, basically.
Wow.
And it's designed for the entrepreneur that's kind of like really wants to do something, is hanging on, and then somebody comes in with this grand, we're going to take your public plan, and it's not going to happen. You're going to end up losing your butt on that.
Well, isn't that largely a function of the company that you're trying to become public?
What's that?
I mean, if the company that you've invested in has real value, as long as it's a clean shell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Not to say, but I really have no experience in this area, to be honest, which is maybe thankful. But I mean, I've heard a couple. But like, you know, when we were approached by like another company, like, oh, you guys act like you're doing well. Maybe we can, you know, merge you with some public company, and they'll allow you to liquidate your stock. You know, and you can go public without having to go public. It was almost like that. It seemed to me to work when companies are a little more desperate, or like where the founders are more desperate to like where the founders themselves were more desperate to exit, where like they hadn't liquidated. And so what these companies are basically selling is an opportunity for you as a founder to get some liquidity for your stock, but once you're a public company, it's like I mean going public kind of scares the bejeebus out of me, because it's like you're answering to not only to all these shareholders, but you're answering out to regulatory authority. I mean, it's like, I don't like that stuff.
Brokers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you got some MIT grad that just graduated, who's an analyst, asks you these questions. They're like, you know nothing about my business.
I want to see your 3-year EBITDA projection.
So those are good problems to have, though. You get to that point, those are good problems to have. You know, like you have options on exit. Question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was consulting with a small company over in Rockville, Maryland, and they went through one of these reverse mergers with an airline that had folded, and the shell company was an airline. And not only do you go through a couple $100,000 in due diligence trying to find out what liabilities that company created down the line, but as Sam said, some lawyers waiting for some assets to show up in that corporation to go after them. So it is very high risk.
It's messy stuff, Lou. You're right, Lou. It's messy stuff.
It is.
And if you're into that situation, then you're in trouble already.
Right.
Because you're starting to believe everything. You're drinking Kool-Aid. It's not going to work for you.
And people approaching you to do that are not tier 1 venture.
No.
They're not. It's not in the end.
Well, it's actually interesting though, because some of the actual tier 1 investors, like, you know, Sequoia or like, you know, Kleiner Perkins or those guys, what they will do is that they know that the founders are like hurting for liquidity, and they don't want to, you know, keep you sort of at the ramen profitable level, which is sort of an inside joke. But what they'll do is they'll allow you to get, if you raise it, they'll allow you to get some liquidity on a fundraise.
Take money off the table.
Right. So instead of diluting your stock per se, what they'll do is they'll acquire some of your stock and give you some of the stock, and that has worked. That's actually what, for better or worse, that's what the Groupon guys did. That the whole way up, they were selling their stock privately to these investors and liquidating their stock. And so it's got a lot of people wondering about that situation. But they took a lot of money out of the company on the way up. Right. And then of course they went public, and then it's kind of musical chairs and, you know, something else about that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys that it seems to me that in this area that the large government contractors seem to be the acquirers. I mean, I work right now. I'm working with a cybersecurity firm based in San Ramon, California. So it does happen out there. But when we go to meetups, there's a guy from Google in the room, there's a guy from Facebook in the room, there's a guy from Cisco in the room, there's a guy from Barracuda Networks in the room, there's a guy from Adobe in the room. Yeah. And so a lot of the potential acquirers theoretically are, you meet them and you get networking, either your investor knows them or you know them. And so that creates some opportunity there for people to learn more about your company. And here it seems like, from what I've reviewed in terms of acquiring those relationships in this area, it's the Northrop Grummans, it's the General Dynamics, it's the Lockheed Martins of the world here that seem to create that market. And everybody else then has to go to Boston or New York or the Midwest, depending on what industry you're in, to look for potential acquirers. And so maybe there's room here for people who really understand like vertical industries and where those potential exits are.
But yeah, it's also having your expectation on how long that deal's going to take.
Right.
Because it's going to take a long time. Because they're going to drag you through the mud forever until they got you, because they're the big guy. Right. And then they say, oh, would you like to sign an NDA? Oh, yeah, great. I'll sign an NDA. You could lawyer me up, and you can bankrupt my company, because if you steal all my stuff, I sign an NDA. It doesn't matter. I can't afford to pay the lawyers. So you can crush me either way. So no, I'm not going to sign an NDA, because the NDA doesn't mean anything. Right. You know, it's just. Yeah. So, but those deals take a long time.
You said the Dingman Center hadn't really had, over the last 5 years, an opportunity to celebrate a large liquidity event.
Right.
I mean, I mean, they're not as frequent as they were in 95 and 99 and in 2000.
I mean, as long as they're still alive, Lou, we got a chance.
Right.
That's how we think. We're angels.
Yeah.
We're hoping every day.
I agree.
Lord, please.
Hopefully,